Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Meducci, Dr. Speed Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 119. Today we have a very interesting show for you, session, episode. I don't know. You got to figure out what you're going to call these things. I don't know. It's number 119. Now, for those of you who are brand new, you can hit the like button. Don't hit the don't like button. Come on. If you don't like it, get out of here. Anyway, hit the like button, subscribe, get notification. You can also go to our Facebook group, which is Position to Win Book. That's Position to Win. And then you can go to positionwinbook.com and go check out other things. Now, with me as always is the lovely Sandra. Welcome, Sandra.
Hello, how are you doing?
Doing well, excited. We have an interesting topic. And for those of you who, and this is one of those, we don't usually talk much about politics or religion, but we're talking about religion today, aren't we? So we're talking about religion. So you have to make sure you're in the right church and the right pew, right? Because that's just the way the thing works. All right, so Sandra, what are we talking about today?
All right, so we're talking about an Apple addiction. So why is there so much hype around Apple events?
Well, it's interesting because when computers were young and I had all brown hair, it was you had these big shows and everything, and that's where you would introduce things, and it was always what's going to come about and how we're going to do this or do that, and it was kind of that whole kind of funky thing. And Steve Jobs in his second coming, this is a religious thing. I don't know if anybody, moved a rock back and found that it was empty or something, but, I think that's an Easter thing. Anyway, when Steve came back, he started doing these events. And when he did these events, he just started getting people getting crazy. And so I was at a Macworld event and everybody said, "Hey, are you going to see Steve? You're going to get to see Steve. You're going to get to see Steve." And I said, "Oh, sure, why not?" And of course, I was naive enough to believe that you could just walk up and, because you didn't need a special ticket. I mean, today, of course, it would be, handled by, a service, and people would be scalping their tickets. But this was you had to wait. And I turned the corner and I saw these people camped out. Now, I'm not a kind of a camp out person to get tickets or any of those kind of things. So I said, nah, maybe I'll see it later. Well, of course, the internet, we see everything. So now all these events are done by, they're not even doing them, they do it virtually. They, sew it together and have, who knows how much special effects they put in. Anyway, back to your question, which is why is there so much excitement, is that Apple has created this kind of stir in their herd, if you will, their crowd, that people get all excited. And since Apple is really tight-lipped about what their next product is, there's got to be at least a dozen, maybe 24, maybe who knows how many, just in English, of all these sites that talk about, the Apple rumor, what's going to happen. I mean, they even have rating services for people who are, they predicted, one thing, but another thing came out, so they get voted down. The next thing is going to be betting. I mean, again, they're tech nerds, but I mean, to me, it's, can't we bet on this thing? But anyway, so I think there's so much excitement because, of course, Apple goes over the top and makes it really exciting versus, when Stephen and Bill were out there dueling it out. I mean, Bill Gates would go out and do an introduction, and people would go, "Okay, I know I've got to sit in the audience, but please, can we get another speaker?" Anyway, for those of you who don't know, Apple has an event on March the 8th, 2022, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's going to be broadcast on, I guess it's webcast on their own, apple.com, and then also on YouTube and all that other stuff. And of course, Apple is always clever, and they call it peak performance, but it's PEEK. And even I know that that's how you don't spell it that way, but I mean, it's a peek under the hood, I guess, to see what the performance is going to be. So there's always this huge amount of hype and excitement. And of course, punditry and all of that, which we will delve into a little bit. I mean, I've watched a bunch of these videos over the years, and I said, I can do that. I mean, make stuff up, maybe. And anyway, so that's why I think there's so much excitement, which is there's this whole throng of Apple fans who believe in that, and this is their this is their thing they're looking forward to.
All right. So do you think there's going to be a new Macintosh computer in March?
Well, a few years ago, the man himself, the guy in charge, said, "Hey, wait a second." Tim Cook said, we're going to get Intel. We're going to get, they have the little symbol that says Intel inside. Well, they've got the other one which shows that Intel signal or logo, and then a red circle and a slash through it. So that's, they're getting rid of Intel. So, maybe there's going to be this new M2 chip with, and all of that. But I think that it's probably going to be a bigger, faster Mac Mini. By the way, the Mac Mini is a computer that they sell a lot of to schools, but also to server farms. And I think they're going to drop, that'd be another Intel processor that gets dropped. So I think that one's almost a guarantee, because that one's kind of that they're still selling the Intel one versus the other Apple chips. If you don't even know what I'm talking about, about the fact that Apple has chips, then you're probably in the wrong church, because most everybody knows about this thing. So, and by the way, they're hard to get. They're not possible, but they're hard to get because there's this whole supply chain problem going on, and that keeps going on and on and on. So that's happening. So yeah, we have that potentiality. And then also, could there be a new iMac? And people, of course, have been debating and wondering and hoping and saying, is there a new iMac in the offing? And it might be. Who knows? But I would say a Mac Mini. That's what I'm saying. I'm going with that one.
All right. So how many possible items will Apple introduce in March?
And this is where they're really smart marketers. For those of you, even if you don't like Apple, to study them, they're really smart, because they could probably just go back up the truck and unload all kinds of stuff. But they usually stick to like 3 to 5, 3 usually, which is, 3 is the right number for any of you who follow me. 3 is the right number. And so I think that what they're going to do is that their low end iPhone, which is the SE, that's just, an ancient design, it's probably going to get a speed bump, going to get some other things, but more importantly, it's going to get a 5G, right? Because 5G is their only phone that doesn't have 5G. So I think that's going to happen. I think the other thing that's going to happen, of course, is that there's going to be the iPad Air is going to get a spec bump, because, well, as we'll see later, I think that it has been dwarfed by another Mac or another Apple iPad product. So I think that's going to happen. And as I said, the Mac Mini. So I think those are the 3 that we're going to see. And, the wild card might be that there might be another, new MacBook, because of course, laptops are the big money makers in computers today. But I think we're going to see 3, maybe 4. And, for all of you out there, saving up your pennies, bringing in your aluminum cans. By the way, aluminum is way up, globally. So, hey, who knows? You might get more money out of your cans that you've been saving up, and all your IPAs. Just make sure you buy those cans that are recyclable. So, yes, I think that's what we'll be covering, and we'll see. And next week we'll see whether or not the prognosticators. Again, I have no inside information. I am just, having watched all of these speculators, I have taken that and said, seems interesting. Some of the crazy things that people say, yeah, I don't think so. And they're talking about, is there going to be a new chip family called the M2? Be interesting. I mean, it's been a couple of years since they introduced the M1. All I can tell you is that whenever you are in technology land, there's always going to be another. And for those of you who are into musicals and Annie, tomorrow, there's always tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is always a day away. So, there's going to be some disappointment. You're going to probably hear a bunch of people say, oh, why didn't Apple do this? Oh, why didn't Apple do that? Yeah, well, that's because, people just get kooky crazy. So that's what my thinking is.
All right. So with that, what's the best Apple springtime gift that you could give?
So I think, for anybody who's out there who is in the Apple ecosystem or wants to dabble their little toes in that water, is that I like the iPad Mini, the new one. It's got a lot of great features. I'm an iPad user for a long time. went and played with it. Just don't want to, burn. I'm keeping my powder dry, but if I was going to give a gift, that would be my choice. And it's kind of that three little bears thing, where you get the baby bear and the mama bear and the papa bear, and you got to find the one that's just right. Well, to me, the iPad Mini is the just right one. But of course, if you don't want to spend all of that money to buy an Apple product right now, you're thinking, well, John, I'm going to save my pennies, or I'm going to buy something bigger and more expensive. So, maybe I still need something for a gift. What could it be? Well, we got you covered right here. We got you covered right here. It is. This is Phil, the first to realize it, Position to Win. You can get this physically from positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. And if you go there, what you can do is you can actually get me to sign it, and you'll get a signed copy. Yay. Also, you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, but you can also get it digitally. And then, of course, we have our other book, which is Remote Work for a Better World, and that's available exclusively in Kindle land. So there you go. That should keep you going. And that's your springtime gift. So what do we have next?
All right. So if you had a magic wand, what would you have Apple introduce in March?
Well, for me, and of course, Apple would charge so much that, my credit card would be weeping and crying, if all of you out there who are Clapton fans and, Beatles fans, while my guitar gently weeps, sometimes you go to the Apple store while my credit card gently weeps. So I would say my favorite would be an iMac with a huge screen, like a 32-inch screen would be really cool. An all-in-one from Apple like that. I mean, I do like all-in-ones, and I buy all-in-ones, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. I would love to have one with a 32-inch rocking screen, curved or not, that'd probably be straight screen. But really, that would be my choice. But I don't think they're going to build one of those anytime soon. It's going to be too much of a niche product.
All right. So what is it about Apple that makes it so addictive to so many people?
So I think that it started out where people would buy them, they would find them easy to use, they would get their work done, and the stuff just kind of worked. Now other companies have caught up over time. But I think really the reason why they have maintained and become a 2.7 trillion dollar company, maybe they're less today, who knows what the market's doing, but I think it's because it's so tightly integrated. So you actually get to get work done. So from from your iPad to your iPhone to your iMac to your all of the above, all of the stuff kind of works somewhat seamlessly, and that does not seem to be the case in other ways. I have a Dell all-in-one that sits on my desktop, and it says you can connect, because this, of course, is Windows 10, not 11. I'm not there yet, but Windows 10, and it says you can connect your phone to your computer. And no, it doesn't work. And yet you can easily do that with Macs. So I think that tight integration is what drives people and makes people excited and says, okay, this stuff just works. And again, as we'll talk in just a moment, I've got a lot of different technology, but I think that tight integration is really a big key. And the fact that the stuff works, and it works, on a very consistent basis. There is, some people say there's worshiping at the altar of Apple. And I always say it's praying that Microsoft works. So either way you're praying. So you're in there, you're doing it. So that's what I think is why people like them so much, is that once that integration starts happening and all of that starts working, you go, yikes, this is good. This works really well. And and I'll just give an example. I use my phone to make calls. Okay, I know we didn't flash a warning onto the screen, but I actually use my phone to make calls. So my iPhone, I use that. And when I bought the AirPods or AirBuds, or I don't even know what the hell they call them. But anyway, when I bought them and I wanted to pair them with my phone, understand I did not have to do what I had to do with my Sony ones, which is push these two buttons simultaneously, count to 3, wait for this thing to flash, tap this, do this, do this, do this. All I did was I charged it, opened up the little case, which by the way is a cool little case, and it said, voila, you're paired. That's tight integration. So that's what that means. All right, Sandra, I'm looking at the clock. What do we got?
All right. Is it worth it to switch from one ecosystem to another?
So it depends on what you do, and depends on how you live, and depends on what you want to accomplish. I know, I had a business partner yesterday. We were traveling together, and he has the mindset that he will pay no more than $250 for an Android phone, and therefore that's his use case. He underutilizes his phone a lot, in my opinion. There's a lot of things that a $250 Android phone can do. There's a lot of things it can't do. Now, it depends on what you do. It depends on how you're going to utilize it. I live in multiple ecosystems. At some point in time, I don't know, maybe I trim them, take some of them out like old Yeller, and it's time to say bye-bye. But I have PCs, and I'm well versed in PCs and PC land. There's a lot of things that they don't do that I'd like to see them to do. It's a lot of things they do. So there's nothing wrong with that. The challenge of it is that it won't talk to my iPhone easily, and then people say, oh, it's because you don't have an Android. Well, I do have an Android phone. I have, in fact, 2 Android phones, and it doesn't talk to those either. Because, by the way, if you don't know, Microsoft and Google aren't happy, joy, skipping down to Rainbow Bridge to, the herd of unicorns. So it kind of doesn't work for that. I also have Macs. I have an iPhone 11 Max. I have an iPad Pro. I've got a Samsung tablet. I have Amazon Fire tablets. So that sits in a drawer because, Jeff Bezos, he hates Google worse than, other people. So that doesn't work with other things, so is it worth it to switch? I think if you don't have 1, the patience, 2, the money, and 3, the learning curve stamina, if you get into the Apple ecosystem, and yes, they're going to, and I don't know if this is in any legislation currently, but I want to make sure that I can put Apple down as a dependent, because you buy all this stuff and you buy all this stuff and you buy all this stuff. So is it worth it to switch? It depends. I will tell you that an Apple phone, an Apple computer, from my experience, will last longer. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better, but it will last longer than not. I still have Apple Mac Minis running in my office that were designed or released in 2012. So I have 10-year-old computers doing real meaningful work. I have 10-year-old PCs, and they're doing something meaningful. They're filling a closet because they don't work. Now, for all of you who are out there who are Linux people, and I haven't mentioned Linux. Yes, I even have a Linux box. If I had enough time and too few brain cells to care, I would in fact go and I could, yes, reharvest those PCs, rejuvenate them, and regale myself in Linux splendor. But all I can say is every person I've ever met who's a Linux person has to be very technologically sophisticated. So to give you just a good sense and a wrap up, decide on what you want to do, buy it based upon that it does what you want it to do, and make sure that you are capable of getting the job done that you need to do. I, in fact, support both ecosystems primarily because I have jobs that need to be done on each one. In fact, there's a website that I have to access for one of my businesses that I have to use a PC. By the way, it's a government website. And for the longest time, the only browser they would accept was Internet Explorer. And even though Microsoft killed it, we'd have to go back to a legacy machine to do it because, of course, they didn't trust anything else. So you decide which ecosystem you want. I actually think that if I was going to start over, I would probably go with an Apple ecosystem, bite the bullet, pay the higher price, because all the stuff works together. Here's my final commentary. It's 2022, people. How in the world is it that I can't get one group of computers to talk to another group of computers relatively seamlessly? This was supposedly what networking was going to solve. Recently, we had a very important contract that we needed to move from one machine to another machine. These machines can see each other, they can say hi, but they couldn't find each other on the network. And we had to use something that I didn't think we would ever have to do. Now, we used to do this with floppy disks, but what we did is we had to use a USB drive, download all of it, move it over to the other machine, and plug in that USB drive to access it. Absurd. Now, I don't think the Apple event fixes all this stuff, but just my commentary. So with that, I'm happy that you were here. Hopefully you're going to have fun watching the Mac event. If you've never seen one of these slick productions, it's a good thing to do. By the way, if you've never seen some of the old ones that Steve did, he was the quintessential showman and an amazing presenter. And you can learn a lot if you present just by watching him. And again, watch the technique, you know, and understand what you get. And with that, hopefully we'll find out on March the 8th whether or not there really is peak performance.